Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on your location. Thank you for joining us for today's Big Data Thought Leadership webinar entitled Gamification, Leveraging Game Strategies and Big Data to Drive Business. A couple of housekeeping items. Please feel free to submit your questions via the chat tool. You can opt to send your question to the entire group, or you can send them privately to the panelists by selecting the panelist from the drop-down menu within the chat tool. My name is David Morris, and I'll be today's moderator. Feel free to email me if you have a big data request or if you'd like a specific speaker from which you would like to hear. Our Big Data Thought Leadership webinar series is a monthly webinar series which highlights key big data topics from leading industry experts. It's structured as an educational series offering attendees relevant and valuable information on current big data topics. What this webinar isn't is a product pitch. It's an educational pitch, and we'd like to keep it that way. I think it's very useful. Now, you can see my information here on the screen, so please feel free to contact me. And as a housekeeping issue, or another one, if you've seen lately, on April 24th, EMC and VMware formally announced the formation of Pivotal, which is a new company comprised of several big data-focused business units, Greenplum, Gemfire, CTOS, Pivotal Labs, and others. Pivotal will be a big data-focused standalone company jointly owned by EMC, VMware, and General Electric. Please note this change as our Big Data Thought Leadership webinar series will be branded going forward as Pivotal versus CTOS VMware. And we don't want to get lost in your inbox. So today's Big Data Thought Leader is Dr. Carl Kapp. Dr. Kapp is a scholar, author, and expert on the convergence of learning, technology, and business operations. His background in teaching e-learning classes, knowledge of adult learning theory, and his experience training CEOs and frontline staff provides him with a unique perspective on organizational learning. His experience with technology companies and high-tech initiatives provide him with valuable insights into future trends in technology and learning, which he shares with his students and business clients as he teaches, consults, and coaches in the field of organizational learning. Dr. Kapp has written 5 books on organizational learning and technology, with his latest book being The Gamification of Learning and Instruction. In his consulting practice, he's worked with companies and organizations such as AstraZeneca, Toys R Us, Kaplan Engineering, Kellogg's, Sovereign Bank, as well as numerous federal government agencies. He has helped these organizations to develop and devise strategies around learning management systems, mobile learning solutions, learning via social networks, knowledge transfer and immersive learning best practices, and instructional design and learning strategy development. Dr. Kapp also was named one of the top 20 most influential training professionals by his peers. It's great to have you here today, Dr. Kapp.
Thanks, David. It's great to be here. I'm excited about the topic and excited about this opportunity to talk about it.
Well, and we appreciate it. As you and I were discussing your new book and gamification, I really was amazed. It really opened my eyes onto how prevalent gamification really has become. I mean, I look now at my Starbucks card, and I look at what Safeway is doing when I go to the grocery store, and even my bank are starting to use gamification techniques, as it collects this big data and more information about me to drive more business for them. I mean, gamification has really become a pervasive technology today.
It really has, and it really is becoming almost ubiquitous. It's really kind of amazing how over the past few years, we've always had loyalty programs, and we've always had programs that involve people earning points and stamps and those types of things, and they've never really had a formal terminology. And simultaneously, the rise of the games, I call it, we've got average gamer being, older and older in the upper 30s, games becoming ubiquitous in everything that we do, colleges graduating individuals who have programming experience and programming games, and so it's really kind of permeating a lot of what we do, and I think it's really kind of fascinating how it's starting to impact businesses and individuals on lots of different levels. So that's basically what I want to talk about in the next few moments that we have together here. And as David said, author of the book, The Gamification of Learning and Instruction. But today what I really want to talk about are three things that have to do with gamification. Well, four things. One, I'm going to define gamification. Then I'm going to talk about gamification and its competitive advantage, how innovative organizations are using gamification to seek an advantage. I'm going to talk about the value of gamification. I'm going to go through some case studies and show the value of gamification from a numeric standpoint, but also talk about it from kind of the human standpoint, or why people really like gamification. And then talk a little bit about best practices for initiating gamification if you want to add a loyalty program or these types of things to your organization. So let's start out by talking about what is gamification. And while there's not one widely accepted definition of gamification, most of the definitions have something to do with using game-based mechanics, game-based thinking, game-based design to engage people, to motivate people to do actions, to learn, to solve problems, and primarily to engage people. So gamification is a technique to get through the clutter of all of the messages and all the digital data that we're getting every day and engage us as individuals. And in my looking at the subject, I really see two types of gamification. One I call structural gamification, which is adding things like points, badges, leaderboards, levels, and those things to propel people through content, through an experience, or what I call content gamification, where you actually change the experience to be more like a game. So one is you kind of add things on, two, you add content. Now, that doesn't mean we're actually creating a game. We're using elements of a game. And I always like to do the old, if you've ever taken the SAT and those old word problems, part is to whole as, piece is to process or whatever. So we're doing gamification. Gamification is to learning game as part is to whole, piece is to puzzle, slice is to... So gamification is part of, if you look at a game for learning. So it's part of it. But the idea is that gamification uses pieces of games but is not a game in and of itself. So while it has elements of games, it's not necessarily a game. And that is kind of the big difference. In a lot of different applications, we can add elements of games without turning it into an entire game and still enjoy it. So a loyalty program is very much has pieces of a game. You have points for every trip that you take, for example. You get levels, your platinum level. You get to board the plane first, those types of things. But those aren't the only elements that make up gamification. But before I go too much further, I want to ask a few questions. And the first one, or ask a question, the first one is, by 2015, what % of global 1,000 organizations are predicted to use gamification as a primary mechanism for transforming business operations? So just take a moment, and which do you think is going to be the right answer? So by 2015, what % of global 1,000 organizations are predicted to use gamification as a primary mechanism? So I'll give everybody a moment or two to go ahead and answer that question. Get you thinking, get you engaged. And this is according to Forbes. I had mentioned something yesterday to David. I'm like, Gartner stats. But it's actually a Forbes statistic. So you may have narrowed it down. 5% is probably a little low for this type of element, and 80% might be a little high. So let's see what the results might be. And we're getting the results here in a moment. I know everybody's anxiously, this is a pretty good group. So most people selected C as the right answer, and that is the right answer. So Forbes predicts that by 2015, 40% of all organizations will use gamification as a primary mechanism for transforming business operations. So we know these statistics are historically off base, if you will, but even if they're half right, even if it's 20% or even 10%, a large number of organizations are starting to really seriously think about gamification. But gamification is not only about points, badges, progress bars, and rewards, because if it was, this would be the world's funnest game. This is called Progress Wars. And the way you play Progress Wars, see that big button there in the middle that says Perform Mission? You click on that button and you make progress. You click on it again and you make more progress. You click on it again, more progress. You can click on that bar seemingly forever, just making progress and getting through levels. After about 2 minutes, it's mind-numbing. People get really frustrated with it because all you're doing is clicking this bar. It's actually not fun. And that's the reason why the person created this game, to say, look, just adding progress bars to things does not make it fun, does not mean that's something that you want to do. So simply adding a progress bar or randomly adding points or badges or whatever doesn't really make for good gamification. However, used correctly, it can be very powerful. This is the LinkedIn profile. And when LinkedIn added a progress bar to profile completions increased by 20%. So while having a random progress bar for no reason and clicking it is mind-numbing, adding a progress bar in the right context is very motivating. And if you think about it, LinkedIn is all about looking at creating a profile. So the progress bar does several things. One, it allows me to see how far I have left to complete my profile. It also encourages me to complete my profile because the value of LinkedIn is connecting with people, and people will connect with me more easily when my profile is completed. So that's why we look to things like progress bars and see that, wow, I'm getting a 20% increase in my profile completion by adding a progress bar because the progress bar was in the right context. Adding points for the number of people you know or something like that might not be as meaningful. And in fact, if you remember a few months back, LinkedIn sent out a message saying, hey, congratulations, you're in the top 10% of all LinkedIn users. Well, it turns out that LinkedIn had so many users that being in the top 10% meant you were with literally millions of other people. And it wasn't as fun and exciting and as exclusive as people thought because it's still a pretty big pool. So things done with gamification have to be done in the right context. The possibility of gamification are really more than just points, badges, and rewards. So what are the right contexts? Well, one is add a challenge. Individuals like challenges. So if it's too easy to earn a point or too easy to get badges, the learner is not involved or engaged. So if you truly want to engage somebody, you need to add a challenge. And this is supported by research. I have a research reference there on the bottom. And this is, for those of you who are familiar, this is Ragnaros, the god of fire from World of Warcraft. A very challenging individual to defeat. So challenge is something that we want to think about adding. Now, we don't want to make the challenge too difficult so people give up, but we don't want to make it too easy either. And we're going to see how challenges really help propel people through gamification experiences. Next is feedback. One of the most important things about a game in general is feedback. One of the reasons why Pac-Man was so popular was because it gave you immediate feedback on how you were doing, right? You knew how many dots you had already eaten, how many dots you had left to eat to win. You knew right where the bad guys are. You got immediate, continual feedback. If you think of most transactions, you don't get continual feedback. It's kind of a one and done, or you get feedback later on, or something like that, where a game gives you constant feedback. That's another really important element of gamification. It also has implications for big data, because if we're going to give you constant feedback, we have to constantly be monitoring where you are. We have to constantly collect that data, analyze that data as quickly as possible, and give meaningful feedback back to the person using the application. So big implication there for big data. Another element is story. Remember how I talked about LinkedIn? I don't necessarily mean a narrative story, but story meaning context. So, for example, the LinkedIn progress bar worked because of the context of me wanting to have a full profile so I could connect with people, and knowing that I was almost done with my profile. So stories provide a good context. They can be stories created by the learner, or they could be external stories created by who's ever developing the application. Another element I think that's really important, that's part of games and gamification that works well, is something called self-determination theory. And self-determination theory is a theory of motivation. And it's really what's called a meta theory, because it covers a lot of different theories. But the main three elements of self-determination theory are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. An individual needs to feel autonomous, competent, and related to others in order to be self-motivated. So let's look at these, how they work in games. So in a game, being autonomous means things that you do make an impact. If you play a game, you're not just a producer, but not just a consumer, you're also a producer. You're making things happen in a game environment. This is what's important from the perspective of the person using the product or the gamified experience. They want to feel that what they're doing has some impact on the outcome. They have some control over what they're doing. So if you think about it, James Paul G., a researcher at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, said, look, even at a simple level, a player is co-designing the game by the decisions they make. So when you design gamification, you have to ensure that decisions people make inside that experience have an impact outside of that experience. The next one is competence. People want to feel like they're able to achieve the challenges, like this is doable. So one of the things that people always do is they create leaderboards for gamification. Well, I'm a runner, and I really like to run, and I think I'm okay at running, but I'm not great. But I can tell you what, if you put me on a leaderboard with Usain Bolt, the fastest man in the world, that would not motivate me, because there's no way I could ever catch that guy. He's just way too fast. So it's not motivating for me to see him at the top of the leaderboard and know I will never reach that. But if you put me on a leaderboard with my friends that I run with right now, wow, now I want to see, I can beat that person. I know I beat them in practice. Now I can beat them in the race. So it becomes much more motivational. So when we look at things that we think about in terms of competence, we want to think about what can we achieve. And actually some research has shown that team-based gamification can be very motivating, especially within an organization. The third, another thing in terms of competence that I think is really interesting is games allow you to perform before you're competent, right? In order to play Madden NFL 2013, for example, you don't have to go through all these drills about football. You don't have to learn the playbook. You just go out there and you could run a play right away. You may not be successful, but then you learn, when I hit the X button, I do too many jukes. What I really need to do is hit the Y button to run faster, or something along those lines. So when we create our gamification experiences, we can't spend a lot of time on the rules and regulations on how you have this experience. It has to be learned as you go along. People aren't going to take a lot of time to understand this application if it's not easy, simple, and effective to use. And then finally, the self-determination theory has something called relatedness. And what relatedness basically is feeling connected to another person. So one of the things that makes games really fun is they connect you to other people. They connect you to your friends. Some games connect you to people playing around the world. So connectedness is important. They call it relatedness. And interestingly, it doesn't have to be real-time connection or real-time relatedness. So the screen capture here is from a game called You Don't Know Jack, which is a great game. If you're ever in the mood for kind of a total escapist trivia type game, You Don't Know Jack is a great game made by a company called Jellyvision. Now, it's not safe for work, so don't go play it now, but on your off time, play it. And it has a Facebook version. But the really interesting thing here is in this leaderboard of me being in first place, I did not play against these people in real time. What happens is when you play a level, it saves your score. It knows who your friends are, and when they play that same level, it shows the data as if you're playing them in real time. So it stores the data, then says, oh, Carl's playing this game, and then it matches those answers with my answers and says, oh, yeah, you did better than Heather, or, oh, no, you didn't do better than Heather. Here's your score. Here's Heather's score, etc. And it actually seems like you're playing in real time, but you're not. And so I think it's really kind of an interesting thing as we think about what gamification can do for us. It can give us information, but also assign information about what's happened in the past and allow our friends and others to interact with us as if it was real time, even though it's not real time. So I think that's kind of an interesting, really, development with gamification. I haven't seen it much in enterprise-wide applications, but entertainment is a good place to start to look for that. Now, let's get down to business, if you will. Who's doing this in business, and how are they doing it? So one company that's doing it for software is they're doing gamification as a layer. So one piece of software is software from Adobe, and it's called Photoshop. And Photoshop is for high-end manipulation of photographic images. So, on a website, if you want to have an image, if you're developing an online learning program, if you're doing a brochure. And the way most people learn to use software or are taught software is somebody will go through the menu item and say, okay, here's the file menu. Under file, you can save, you can send, you can save ads, etc. But how do you really learn to use a piece of software? You really learn it when your boss says, hey, Carl, I need a budget done in Excel tomorrow morning by 8 o'clock. Well, I don't know Excel, but I figured out how to use Excel. I have a mission. I have a goal. So what Photoshop has done is created this plugin to Photoshop called Level Up. And Level Up basically is a series of missions. And so now you have a goal of why you're using the software. Learning how to use the software is a goal, but oftentimes it's too vague of a goal. But learning how to, for example, get rid of red eye, very specific goal, very tangible, and you can get feedback almost immediately on whether or not you learn to get rid of the red eye or not. So that's an element of gamification. And it includes missions, it includes points, it includes leaderboards, all that kind of stuff. But the idea, the main driver is I'm going through a series of missions. And that's what motivates people through the instruction. So let's look at gamification in the enterprise. And there's really, I think, three primary areas that gamification is going to be in the enterprise. Now, some people will also say innovation is another element that's in there as well. And I agree with that. I think innovation will be in there. I kind of lump that under business operations. But I want to look at three areas right now. One is health and wellness, learning and development, and business operations. And I want to see how those kind of fit from a gamification process. So I'm going to go through several different examples in each of these areas. So the first is health and wellness. And the two examples we're going to look at is one called Daily Challenge by a company called You Me Health. And basically what Daily Challenge is you set up this account, and every day you get a challenge. Remember how we talked about challenge before in your email. They're not complicated challenges, and you can do those to earn points and move through various levels. The challenges are on the level of fitness, also on the level of nutrition, and on the level of spiritually or feeling good about yourself, kind of well-being. The other wellness application we'll look at is one for running and exercise called Nike Plus, and an associated product with that as well. So here's the daily challenge. So basically, it's a website by a company, again, called Meet You Health, and you sign up for it, and every day they send you a challenge. And once you get your challenge, you can decide to share your challenge with your friends or not share your challenge with your friends. You can sign up with others, be social. So here was a challenge that I got one day, which was share one meal that you like to cook in batches and freeze for later. You can accept the challenge. You can pass on the challenge. Once you do that, I share it with other people both in my network, so if I have friends that are already joined in this, or I can share it to the greater network, so everybody in Daily Challenge who chooses to could see the meal that I like to cook. The idea is that, and research shows this, that, for example, if you hang out with people who are overweight, you'll tend to be overweight. So if your group of friends are a little bit overweight, you'll be overweight. If you hang out with a group of friends that like to exercise, chances are you're going to exercise. If you hang out with a group of friends that likes to go to the bar, chances are you're going to go to the bar a lot. So your social network has a very large influence on what you do. So this gamification effort says, okay, let's take the social network concept and let's take the daily challenge concept and add these two together. So you can see I've earned already 621 points. I earned some stamps. I get some level information, and that's a gamification element. Here, I get one in my mail, and it tells me, look, you've completed 2 of 7 challenges so far. 2 people smiled at your post. So if you have a good post or a post about food that other people like or something, they'll smile at your post, very similar to liking something in Facebook, and how many challenges I've completed in the last 3 days. So it gives me a continual update. And then if you do a really interesting post, it will feature your post. So this is simple gamification. It uses a challenge. It uses points. It uses stamps instead of badges. But it also uses the relatedness of social activity to others. And the thing I like about this example of gamification is you could sign up for this today. So if you're like, I want to see how gamification really works from my perspective, you could go to Daily Challenge, just Google that, and you could join it, and you could get your messages, and you can see how you like gamification in terms of receiving something on a daily basis. To me, a daily basis becomes a little bit too much. Maybe I'd like to dial it back a little bit. So that's something to think about from gamification as well. Am I going to do gamification every day, or is it going to be a little bit more intermittent? And here is kind of my summary page. You can see where I am. I got to pick myself as broccoli, or you could pick your own image. I'm not sure broccoli is everybody's favorite image. I know it's certainly not George Bush's. And you can see that I've done 2 of my 42 questions. So it really gives me my progress and lets me know what's happening, but really driven by a challenge. And Blue Shield has something very similar to this. And the really interesting thing is Blue Shield implemented several health and wellness programs in the organization for their own employees. And they found that 80% of Blue Shield employees participated in at least one of the wellness programs. And they use the Yumi Health, and they have their own wellness program. And they found a 50% drop in smoking prevalence and a similar increase in regular physical activity by people that participated in these gamification programs. And the incidence of hypertension is fallen by 2/3, and disability claims in general are down. So they're finding an impact on what they're doing. It's very interesting. There's another company called Exonify that did a project with Pep Boys, and they provide health and safety messages on a regular basis and have found similar results. Part of this is the novelty of the game-based learning, is the challenge, is trying to stay competitive and earning the points, knowing where you are in progress. You're getting immediate feedback on whether or not you answer correctly or not. And part of it is we know from research that learning or doing a little bit of something a day is the best way to get long-term results. Think about college. When you were in college, you had a test, you crammed for that test. And when you crammed for the test, you did well in the test the next day, but the next week you couldn't remember anything. But if you study a little bit every day, it actually leads to better learning. So same thing works with behavioral change. If you do a little bit of behavior change every day and are given feedback on behavior change, it allows you to shape your behavior almost effortlessly. So at the end of the time period, your behavior is actually changed. Now here's another really interesting example. This is called Nike Plus. And Nike Plus is the gamification of running, right? So here's a graphic depiction of a run that I did. You can see I'm at the green level. You can see my total number of miles, which is just like points. You can see I have goals and challenges, and I have a coach to give me information. I even have a little character there. And I can create this whole story about training for a marathon and that kind of thing, for a half marathon and that kind of stuff. You can share your running results and everything. But after a while, the Nike Plus kind of got boring. It's kind of like if you have kids and you create a star chart. When I first discovered star charts, I thought those were like the miracle to parenthood. I said to my son, Nate, go brush your teeth. If you brush your teeth, I'll give you a star. Like that first day, he was up the stairs brushing his teeth. The next day, brushing his teeth. About a week later, I'm like, hey, Nate, I noticed you didn't brush your teeth. Don't you want a star? And he said, Dad, no. I don't want a star. I want 2 stars. So it escalates because 1 star is no longer rewarding. And then he wants more stars. And then he wants candy in order to brush. So now I have to give him a candy bar in order for him to brush his teeth. It escalates. So the idea of just arbitrarily having points and rewards doesn't really work. Now, it doesn't mean I still don't run. I do run. But now I don't run to keep track of miles or whatever. I run to evade zombies. I use a product called Zombies Run. Now, it does the same thing as Nike Plus, but it presents it in the context of a story. And how that works is you're runner number 5, and you wake up and you put on your iPhone or iTouch, and it says, okay, runner number 5, today we're going to go out and get medical supplies in Sector 10. There are no zombies in Sector 10. So you go running, and as you run, it goes, beep, okay, you picked up medical supplies. Okay, you picked up ammunition. Okay, you pick those things up and you bring them back to headquarters and you load them, and it shows progress just like Nike Plus did. It shows progress in the same way. With Zombies Run, though, not only that, but it tells you a story. Like, oh, okay, we thought Sector 10 was safe from zombies, but you know what? There's zombies in Sector 10. You better run. And so now you're running faster. You're doing interval training as you're listening to what's happening with Zombies Run. So the idea is that it has placed all the same activities in context. In this case, it's the context of a story of zombies, and not slow zombies. Like when I grew up, zombies were slow. They were the bottom of the monster food chain. But now zombies are fast. I think The Stand made them fast or something like that. Anyway, Will Smith, I think. But the idea is that you're getting exercise, you're keeping score, basically, you're leveling up, you're getting prizes, but it's all within the context of the story. So stories are what helps drive it. So when you're thinking of gamification, what is a story? Amy Jo Kim calls it the learner's journey or the player's journey. What is the overall journey or experience a person experiencing gamification is going through? And relate that to the experience of others. So, again, lots of data needed to do that, but it can be really kind of important. So that was 2 brief health and wellness examples. So here's an example of learning and development. This is a mobile example of gamification. This mobile learning company called Cricket created Cricket University, and you earn points for doing certain formal learning assignments. If you do them early, you get acceleration points. You have leaderboards, 3 different leaderboards, which I think is interesting, we'll talk about, and digital badges. And then a gamification effort called Learning Guru that involves characters, challenge, and feedback. Here is Cricket. So basically, the Cricket Mobile U. You get information for sales reps to learn how to sell a mobile product. And so since they were selling a mobile product, they thought the best platform was a mobile platform. Makes sense. One of the first things they implemented were 3 different leaderboards. So you have a leaderboard overall. That's the master leaderboard. You have a group leaderboard, which could be by your store, by your region, friends that you choose. So you can choose your own leaderboard. So as I said before about Usain Bolt, you may not care about Usain Bolt being at the top of the leaderboard list, but under group leaderboard, you may care here because your friends are on there. And there's also a challenge leaderboard, which is a great idea. So you have different challenges as you go through the instruction. So rather than have just one challenge for overall instruction, you could actually be a leader in one challenge, even though you might not be as good in another challenge. So it gives you the opportunity to be a leader in several different areas, which makes it motivational. Some people are going to go for the master leaderboard and want to be in the top 10. Some people are going to go for the group, and group is actually, for more people, more motivating. And then for the individual challenge. So it gives you an opportunity to kind of look at being a leader in different ways, a nice gamification technique. And then you get badges, as we've seen before. Here's first place badge, second place badge. You can show those on your phone. They're beside your profile. You can share them with friends. So they're very social. And how it works is here's a list of active games. So you would grab your mobile device. You would choose the game that you want. Under each game are learning assignments, and you get points. So this one is 250 points if you go through that assignment. This one is 500 points. This one's 100 points. So you can actually choose which assignment you want to go to, although you get points for completing all assignments. And then as you go through it and you complete it, you earn your points. So you go through that particular process. And as I said before, you can get acceleration points if you go through more quickly. And what are the business results? Well, 39% of the people that went through this said, I wanted to see what I remembered from the training. The question was, why did you participate? Because it was voluntarily. Why did you participate? 39% said, I wanted to do it because I want to see what I remember from training. 42% said, I want my store and my market to win. Remember how I talked about group being very motivational? And 81% agreed with the statement that I learned more about 4G LTE by playing this game than any other way. So people were very motivated to be involved with the learning process and to be engaged in what was happening from a learning perspective. Now here's another example. This is an example called Knowledge Guru. A Knowledge Guru, this again is for a mobile learning company. Mobile learning seems to be really big on games. Now they didn't use a mobile platform. In this case they used a web platform. And what they did, ExactTarget was the name of the software as a service provider. So it was actually a SaaS, not mobile. But they're selling a mobile service through SaaS. So anyway, the idea behind this is there's this guy, there's a guru, and you have to deliver the guru a scroll. And in order to deliver the scroll to the guru, you have to make it up the mountain. So you have 3 different topics, and you get questions in each topic. You get the question right, you move up the mountain. You get the question wrong, you move down. You get it right, you move up, wrong, you move down. That's the challenge. And the guru, he's not really that nice of a guy. He doesn't think you can do it. So you're also a little bit like, well, I'll show you. I can beat this guru. And so here is they're doing the Talk Mobile solution. And this path, you can see they already delivered 1 scroll. Here they've already delivered the 2nd scroll. As you go, you get seeds of knowledge. You get so many seeds of knowledge in a row, you get a pearl of wisdom. And you go up through and you can compete against other people. You get a leaderboard score, but you also have your account score. You get feedback if you answer the question incorrectly, and you lose points if you do it incorrectly, so it's higher stakes. In fact, in this case, the person lost 550 points. So quite a number of points for a wrong answer. So there's big consequences for not answering it correctly. But the sales team loved the Knowledge Guru. So they would go on, they would learn their information, then would go Knowledge Guru and kind of test themselves against their own knowledge and against knowledge of others. When they launched this product, they got an average contract value 2 times higher than any previous mobile product that they've ever launched. The first call resolution was up 45%, and of all the launches that they did in the previous 2 years to having Knowledge Guru, the Mobile Connect sales team built the fastest pipeline for this particular product. So just by answering those questions, now if you just got a bank of questions to answer, it wouldn't be as exciting. But because you're challenged by moving your guy up the mountain to deliver the scroll to the guru, and you have to do it 3 times, and you can see how quickly other people are doing, it got people very motivated in using the product and in looking at what the results were. So let's look at some business operations. So that was learning and development. And there's 2. There's one, Lolly Insurance, and they were looking for a gamification solution for Salesforce.com. So lots of data and good information in there, but they were finding that the update of the stages wasn't happening very quickly by their sales team. They found out that they were not going in there to close accounts or update information, and they weren't properly logging prospect calls. So we'll see how they handle that. Ford Canada launched a site called Professional Performance Program, and they wanted to drive traffic to the site and increase the utilization of content, encourage learning, and decrease time to certification. So they used quick feedback, what we talked about before, transparency, meaning you can see exactly where you are, exactly what you're doing, badges, leveling up, and their big data use was they wanted to track user activity, content consumption, employee performance, customer satisfaction, and in this case there were some courses, so course completion as well. So if we look at Lolly, they're an insurance company, so insurance and financial may be some of the last people you might think who would use gamification, very conservative industries, but they embraced it for a 2-week period to see how it would work. And what they did was they had a sales contest for 2 weeks. They wanted to track how many times you went in and closed accounts, how many times you logged progress against a customer. They would rank you out of the total score. They would give you points and tell you how many days that you had left. In this case, they had 44 days left for the time period. But we're tracking here in this 2-week time period. You could also, really interesting, they have this kind of thing, what they call pole position, how far you have to go to catch the leader, the average number of points. You can see, hey, I'm definitely above average here with 88,000, how I'm ranked, and who's on my heels, like how many people are close to what I'm doing. So it gives me complete transparency in terms of where I am in relationship to others. So that's kind of interesting feedback there. And what they resulted, well, in the 2-week time frame that they're looking at, the sales team created the equivalent of 250% of the average weekly activities in the prior about 7.5 months. Huge increase in activity. The closing dates were updated 307 times in that 2 weeks, and stage updates increased 110%. So over 100% increase in activity, updates, and closings than the past 7 months of using the product. So we've all been in situations where softwares get implemented and very slow to get on the uptake, very slow to have people involved with it. But in this case, because of the gamification of knowing where you are, of earning points, of progressing through, people gave dramatic increases in the use of the software. Here's another example from Ford Canada I talked about before, the Professional Performance Program. How do we get people to utilize information for customer support learning that's on this particular website? Well, they used Nitro, which is a bunch ball product. Bunch ball is one of the largest gamification vendors out there, collecting all kinds of data. And they're using this data to track behavior, track actions, all that kind of stuff. And they can check your activities, again, challenges. They can look at where you are and view to others, how many new users have joined, what actions have they done, what are the average actions per user, what are the top challenges that people decided that they wanted to do on this website. Well, they found that positive correlation between engagement in the performance website, they call it P2P, and key performance measures, including sales and customer satisfaction. A 400% plus increase in site usage over the same period of the previous year, and 15% more unique visitors with a 30% increase in unique visits. So they definitely were able to track, because of the gamification, increased usage of the site, which is really kind of good implication for getting people engaged. They had the site out there before, people weren't using it, but now with the gamification elements, people are using it. So one more polling question. So we have all these great examples of gamification, but the question is, according to Forbes, what percent of current gamification applications will fail? In spite of their best efforts, how many do you think might fail? So, 5% all the way up to 80%. All right, let's, if everyone's kind of responded, let's see what the results might be. Okay, looks like 68%, and that's right. Forbes predicts 80% of gamification efforts are going to fail because they're not focused on elements of challenge, on the elements of story, or the self-determination theory. They're just adding arbitrary points or badges and not having the context, not having the challenge that you need. So from the perspective of big data and gamification, what things do we need for success? Well, one, we want to use gamification efforts to track behaviors, actions, and activities. Those are things that we can easily track. Takes a lot of data to go through there, but we want to do that. And then once we have that data, we want to mine it for meaning from behaviors, actions, and activities. We can find out, are people going to the place where we thought that they were going to go based on our gamification efforts? If they're not, we may want to modify that. And we can modify learner actions by crafting feedback to help get the actions that we want from our applications, from our experience. So, for example, Nike Plus, you're not, people might be dropping off. Well, maybe we add a story, something like Zombies Run, and that will keep people motivated because that gives the context. And then finally, reporting on the results. What's happening based on the fact that we're gamifying these processes? Are people getting healthier? Are more sales closing? Are customers more satisfied with the information that we're giving them? So these types of elements are something that can be really important from a gamification and big data perspective. So that's the presentation that I had for today, giving you two examples of gamification in health and wellness, examples of gamification, two of them in learning and development, and two examples in business operations. I wanted to try to give a wide variety of examples so you can kind of see where gamification is being used in a number of different areas. At this point, let me open it up to see if there are any questions about gamification and big data that I may be able to answer.
Well, we appreciate it, Dr. Kapp, and I think your book is available on Amazon there.
That is correct.
And then if anybody wants to contact you with private questions or inquiries, you've got your email address there for consulting, coaching, or helping launch a gamification initiative at an organization.
Absolutely, yes. And you can follow me on Twitter if you're interested in that. And my latest thoughts I put on my blog called Cop Notes. So lots of different information about gamification, about using games for learning, about using games for business operations, and about things that you should keep in mind with your gamification efforts.
So one of the questions was, I think on the Nitro Studio, was that case study looking at inside sales being trained and solving customer problems, or was that outward-facing?
In this particular instance, it was an inward-facing inside sales, so they wanted their sales associates to go to this site and use it. So Ford creates these sites and makes them available to their dealerships. And some dealerships take a lot of advantage of them. Some dealerships take no advantage of them, kind of like any kind of value-added reseller network. And obviously the ones that take more advantage are the ones that do better. And so they wanted to drive people at the dealerships, sales individuals and others at the dealerships, to this particular informational website. And so it was an inside sales.
Okay, and then the previous contest is the same question around that one. Was that I think that's the inside one, or at least a sales one.
Yeah, business operations. Yeah, both of these are inside focused.
Well, I know from my experience, the inside sales teams are always running these type of campaigns, and most of them are posted on the wall. But this looks much more interactive, and you can tune it seemingly a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, what the neat thing about gamification is it really takes advantage of some things that we know from research in terms of human behavior. So, a little bit over time, challenge, motivation, transparency, relatedness, competence, and the nice thing about doing it online is that you get the instant feedback, you get instant transparency. You know where everybody is right away. You're connected to people, so it has a lot of advantages of doing that online. I'm trying to think of an example. The Nike Plus is an outside. That was consumer-based, and Zombies Run is consumer-based as well. The problem there is you don't have as much empirical data, like, a million people started running because of Nike Plus. You just don't have that kind of data in order to give that kind of feedback. But
right.
Many organizations like Starbucks, et cetera, are working on customer-facing gamification efforts.
Yeah, I've noticed right now that Starbucks, and it's been interesting in quote-unquote playing it, but I use the app on my iPhone to pay for Starbucks because it's just really convenient, which I never thought I would actually use a mobile phone to pay for things, but much more convenient. And they do have a very simple game on this one, although I know that they're coming. I spoke with Starbucks the other day at a conference, and they're increasing the gamification, but it's just simply a star, like your son. And every time I go get a cup of coffee, they put an extra star in there, and I actually do check how many stars I get. So it is driving me more oftentimes than not. Between that and how I'm treated in the ambiance there is quite pleasing. So they're going the right direction. And I think that leads into the next question: is how do we get started on gamification? How do we pick the project, and how do we get started? I think is the overall question there.
Right.
How have you seen people? Go ahead.
I think one of the things is to pick a project that is low-hanging fruit. So one of the things that I always say is pick a project where you have a definite business need to engage either internal or external people. So if you're keeping stats and saying, hey, nobody's coming to our website, or hey, none of the sales force is looking at our informational website, or customer service is taking forever to answer customer calls, or whatever the business need is, that's kind of a low-hanging fruit where there's a lack of engagement. Then once you do that, figure out, what natural processes can we gamify to draw them to this process. So health and wellness, for example, like everybody knows that they should be healthy, yet very few people exercise or eat right or whatever on a regular basis. So what's going to make somebody eat right or exercise on a regular basis? Well, how about daily reminders? Oh, that's a good idea. Okay, so does this process need a daily reminder? Okay, so what should the reminder be about? How can this challenge, the person? So, for example, you could do something like, let's say you're working with order entry clerks. You could say, okay, we're going to have a daily order entry challenge. We're going to give you a really difficult order entry scenario and give points to see who can correctly address the customer issue. So you could do something like that. So look for business drivers that need the engagement, find out what drives them, and then you could it doesn't have to – technology really helps, but it doesn't have to be technology-driven. Like you could send emails every day as a reminder, as an experiment. You could keep score in a spreadsheet if you wanted to. I would start at a pilot level, 5 people, see what works for them, see if they're motivated, because the best laid gamification plans are great on paper but may not always play out well in reality. So, for example, I know one organization, they started a gamification effort individually keeping score, and that didn't work, and they were struggling with it, but as soon as they put it into teams, regions, engagement, doubled. So find out what people like to do, gamify those, and then pick the low-hanging fruit, and that's how you would move forward. And look, go to, there's places like Bunchball, read their white papers, Badgeville, a company called Mind Tickle, Level 11. So just go and look and see what other people are doing. You don't have to build this from the ground up. You could purchase kind of a plug-in, go to Knowledge Guru, Exonify, look at what they're doing, and then copy what's successful.
And of course, I think with your experience, you could probably help accelerate if they wanted to get to the next level rapidly with a program.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you want to talk to somebody that's been involved with gamification efforts, understands how they work, and understands games. Because again, there's a number of there's some gamification vendors that are just focused on, add these points. So every time a learner logs in, they get 5 points, or a user logs in. That's not really going to be motivating. So you need to talk to somebody that understands the motivational aspects of gamification. And, talking to a consultant who has experience in it is always helpful.
It is interesting to me, but when I was younger, gaming had more of a pejorative context to it, to be blunt. But
right.
Now that we're starting to see all the big data and what you can collect on people, it not only allows organizations to entertain, but also put a finer point on their segmentation and offer different incentives to selective their different segments to give them the benefits that they want and need by segment versus more of I think historically a brute force marketing approach.
Right. I think one of the big things that we lost, one of the huge opportunities that has been lost and starting to get recovered with when we moved to computers is we took all of our old broadcasting models, mass marketing models, and replicated those on the web. And unfortunately, we didn't take advantage of the customization models. I mean, now we're starting to, and big data is helping with that. But having a complete, think of like World of Warcraft. Everybody's World of Warcraft interface is completely different because we play the game differently. And people say, we need standard buttons, we need standard this, we need standard whatever. But if you look at games, well-designed games are all customized to what that game player wants to experience. And if we could do that on websites, if we could do that on transactions, if we could do that with software, if we could do that, Salesforce.com, whatever, that would be much better. And just keep, all the standard stuff we need to in the background and store that as big data. And I think now that we have some of the storage capabilities and now that we have some of the technology, we're starting to do that. But we still haven't seized on that opportunity as much as we could have, or we haven't reached the full potential of that.
Right, and I think there's going to be an exciting future within this specific specialty going forward. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, Dr. Kapp, we really appreciate you coming today and presenting on your book, as well as a lot of the very specific use cases of gamification.
Thanks, David. I really enjoyed the opportunity to talk about my book and to talk about gamification. It's always a lot of fun.
So we're coming up on the top of the hour, and we appreciate everybody that stayed with us. Next month's webinar is going to be a big data webinar on looking at your return on investment of big data and big data analytics by Balu Rajagopal. It's delivering big answers from big data, an analysis of your return on investment. You can sign up for that at ctos.net/webinars. So we look forward to seeing you next month on that one. And as the sponsor, we do have CTOS Analytics for a free trial. You can download that on our website. Appreciate if you do that. Kick the tires there. And this is a thought leadership webinar series with looking at big data topics, looking at key trends, and having industry experts. So please feel free to tell a friend about our webinar series. Feel free to suggest topics and speakers on that you want within context of big data. Love to hear from you, and appreciate that you've joined us today. And thank you very much for your time and patience.